All right, so we are going to get into this. There's a lot of negative talk about Ethereum ETFs, the performance of it. It just launched. We're so early, and when you compare it to the Bitcoin launch, it's incomparable. It's an absurd comparison. It's not going to react, and it's not going to actually do the same numbers. The Ethereum ETFs, this is a different monster, and let's go ahead and talk about it. All right, let's go ahead and get into it, man. I hope you guys are doing very well. Happy Tuesday to you. The week is going along quite swiftly. We'll be at Wednesday and Thursday before you know it, but let's get into the actual conversation. $65,000 Bitcoin is what we're looking at. Let's go ahead and say 66. We're just under 66. A lot of selling, guys, is going on right now. The actual market cap did dip almost 2% within the actual last 24 hours. We did have a considerable drop in volume as well, almost 15%. We're down just around $84 billion within a 24-hour period. That is actually kind of concerning to a lot of folks. I think this is just a lot of selling, buying the actual rumor. And we're talking about the actual Ethereum ETF situation, which actually was approved. We did get those actually in action today. And then they're selling it. A lot of people are selling the news. They're not hanging around. You can see this in the Bitcoin as well. We're going to move to Ethereum as well. $3,400, $3,414.26. Just moved up to 81 cents. We have a fluctuative pattern here. This is going to be the day chart. And as I was saying just a couple of weeks ago, this Ethereum ETF situation is not going to have a head of steam like Bitcoin ETF launch did. It's not going to have that actual win in the sell. There was not a lot of media coverage. Now, you had a couple of commercials that came. I think BlackRock dropped a commercial to their customers. They're probably going to be buying the most of the Ethereum ETFs. But I have to tell you, this is going to take months to actually ferment. All right. And I'm talking about the Ethereum ETF situation. It's going to take months. It's not going to have that big boom effect like the Bitcoin ETFs did. There was a lot of money in that pipeline when I'm talking about Bitcoin. With the Ethereum situation, everybody's really hesitant because there was not a lot of media coverage. We're going to get in and react to a video because this young man that we're going to react to that was actually on the CNBC show, he brought up a lot of great points that I want to actually compound on. But back to this, the price discussion. This is not surprising. This should not surprise anybody across the market because these Ethereum ETFs, although people were bullish up to this point, it's a bearish sentiment. A lot of people really don't like the fact that you really can't stake this situation. A lot of people are staking ETH. I know you're pissed off if you locked because you're probably going to see a reduction all the way down to $3,200 going into the actual weekend. Who knows if it's going to go below that. I believe we're going to have a new floor essentially because there's a lot of negative tonnage that is going on right now when it comes to the rhetoric. People are disappointed with the performance, with the launch. I think if it would have launched when it was supposed to early in July, the first week of July, maybe a different response. But we're going to get into this interview really quick because I think there was a lot of things that were said here that I want to compound on because there were some valid points. But I obviously the comparison, when you compare this launch with the Bitcoin launch, the ETF launches that we had earlier this year, I think it's absurd. There's no comparison here. You cannot compare the two. There are two different animals. There was a lot of money in that pipeline when it comes to the Bitcoin launch. With this Ethereum situation, not as much, right? And it was a bit bearish because we didn't know if it was actually going to happen. Let's go ahead and react to this.
Set to begin trading today, the SEC approved ETF applications from 21 shares.
We're going to look at all these portfolios too after this interview because the outflow is pretty interesting. I think we're going to go out to around 19 hours back. We'll get to that though. Let's go ahead and continue this.
Bitwise, BlackRock, Fidelity, iShares, Benek, and Franklin Templeton, along with Invesco Galaxy. And joining us right now to talk about all of this and what it means for the crypto industry and what is now we'll describe as a milestone, another milestone. Anthony Pompliano is here, founder and CEO of Professional Capital Management.
Yeah, don't be fooled by the smile. He's pretty bearish on Ethereum ETFs.
It's nice to see you.
Good to see you.
You think this is a game changer or not really? You seem less excited this morning than when you were here on Bitcoin Day.
Yeah, well, let's go look at the Bitcoin ETF. I think, historic thing, probably the best ETF launch in history. One of the interesting stats is that the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF has had more net flows than QQQ year to date. right? So just massive flows there, over $500 million.
No, and he's right. I think the actual Bitcoin ETFs are basically setting the floor for Bitcoin. They're the reasons why it didn't even touch 48 when we had the Germany sell-off. When we had the the Silk Road situation, our government selling Bitcoin as well. We have Mt. Gox that's going on right now. None of that is going to matter because of the ETF effect. These ETFs, I'm talking about the Bitcoin ETFs, they're basically keeping Bitcoin above 60K. This has been all ETFs, and you can add in the El Salvador effect too as well. They buy Bitcoin every day. So these ETFs have been a blessing. If you subtract this, at this point, we probably wouldn't have a 66K Bitcoin at this point in time. It'd probably be around 50 if we didn't have the ETF inflow. Let's go ahead and continue.
Just yesterday alone. And so I think what a lot of people say is, well, that was the first one. Is the second one going to be as big? And I don't think that's true, right? If you just go and, before I came on, I looked at all the major news sites. People aren't talking about it as much. And so the media attention, the hype, all that stuff isn't really there. And so it brings you to the question of
listen, he's right. That's one point that I do agree on. The media coverage when it comes to these Ethereum ETFs, although publications, there were multiple publications that were writing on this profusely. But when it comes to media, when it comes to visual media, we just didn't have it. We didn't have that coverage like we did with our Bitcoin ETFs because the Ethereum ETFs, we didn't know if they were going to get approved. With the 2.0 issue, with the S1 issue, all the paperwork, all the resubmissions, it was very rocky, but we did get it, but I think it was a little too late. All right, let's continue.
Why are people not talking about it as much? And I think part of the challenge for Ethereum is that the story isn't as clear. It's very clear with Bitcoin, right? It's digital gold. When we start talking about Ethereum, you start talking about a technology platform. There's a lot more competition, et cetera. But if you go and you talk to the people at Bitwise, they're launching ETH W today. Yep. What they would tell you is, well, actually, there's diversification. People on Wall Street love that. And so maybe actually the benefit that Ethereum will have is just people say, well, I don't want to have just one. I want to have a couple of them. It's Bitcoin, it's Ethereum. Let me do like a 70-30 split, and that'll be good enough for it.
All right, I want to touch on that because he does make a great point. We don't talk about this enough when it comes to the educational factor. When it comes to onboarding, Bitcoin is very simple. Bitcoin, everybody knows what Bitcoin is. It's a very simple notion, guys. Storage of wealth. It's a coin that you put money in if you want to actually build wealth. This is what a lot of people believe. That's the sentiment. And when I talk to people, they just think digital gold. This is the actual termage, the phrase. It's a very simple notion, very simple technology. It's very archaic, if you will, slow. A lot of people say it's too slow, but Bitcoin is not hard to figure out. Now, when it comes to Ethereum, there's a huge educational gap when it comes to when you're moving from Bitcoin to Ethereum. It's very, very diverse. We know this. Smart contracts. That's not native language when it comes to the ground zero floor and we're talking about people that are outside of the space, people that are coming in trying to learn about this stuff. They're going to have an easier time figuring out Bitcoin than Ethereum. So there's that educational gap as well. That's going to play a huge part in how these ETFs actually function as well, because it is a very dynamic situation. It's not easy to actually get a hold of. And when it comes to the smart contract factor, the dynamics of Ethereum, good luck explaining that to anybody that's outside of the space. So let's go ahead and get into it.
And so I think that we really got to see what these flows are going to look like, because the story isn't as clear. You're not going to get access to the staking. So the cash flow that people really like about Ethereum isn't available to these.
That's another point. You will not have access to the staking aspect of Ethereum. So a lot of people are like, why should I get involved with this? I have a more beneficial attribute if I just go buy my Ethereum off an exchange or on a Web3 wallet, a DeFi standpoint, and just stake it on Coinbase or whatever. You can stake it in a Web3 wallet at this point in time. You have third-party interactions there. So why should I buy into the Ethereum ETF? Well, I can just buy ETH and stake it. It's a very interesting bring up. I think he's right about that. There's a problem there.
Kind of ETF holders. And I think that the flows itself are not going to be nearly as big as Bitcoin. And so the question is, how much impact on price is this really going to have?
Walk us through just what the flows look like on Bitcoin, to the extent that that's going to be a model at all. Even if you said this 70-30 idea that you're going to diversify in that way, you'd say, well, then should you just say that this is going to be 30% of whatever that was?
Yeah. Well, I think that the flows on the Bitcoin side, some of these funds have 10, 15, 19 billion dollars in them, right? I mean, these are real money that's moving into these things. What I do think is interesting about the Ethereum ETF approval, and probably the thing I've taken away the most, is less about Ethereum and more about the rest of the market. What this signals to me is that all of the altcoins are going to come to Wall Street. It may take a while. There may need to be some regulatory clarity. They may get treated a certain way, but these things are going to come to Wall Street.
All right, I got to stop there too, because he has a point there as well. And again, there's that comparison. Some things you can compare, but when it comes to the inflow, I think that's apples and oranges. I don't think we're there yet. It's going to take time for ETH to actually build up that type of inflow, and I think it's going to take months. It may even take a year before these ETFs actually show boisterous numbers. Bitcoin, it didn't take too long. There was a decent jump, cleared to 76, and then we did get a massive dump. And now we're just sitting at around 66, 62 was probably the floor, I would say. This is where we're at now. So the benefits and the inflow is there, but there's a lot of outflow too as well. A lot of selling. Again, Grayscale, you name it, Silk Road, Mt. Gox, the Germany dump, it's on and on, right? So the ETFs are just basically sustaining Bitcoin at this point in time. Now, if we didn't have all this outflow, Bitcoin will be at 6 digits right now. I do believe that. Now, as far as Ethereum, it's going to take almost a year before these ETFs actually register any considerable inflow. A year. And I don't think a lot of people are really happy about that. That is the actual truth. I'm telling the truth, guys. 1 year at least before we see that type of inflow that's going to push the price up to around 5 to 10K. And in the meantime, I think we want to see a reduction in the price because of the sentiment, the fear, and not only doubt, but disappointment. And now as far as altcoins, he's so right. Crypto ETFs, all right, they're on the way. They will hit Wall Street. That will happen. And don't forget about the Texas Stock Exchange is going to come online next year as well. We will have a entirely new front in Texas. And we're going to be talking about a stock exchange that's going to be erected here in Texas. That's going to compete with the New York Stock Exchange, which will be a never before seen dynamic within this country. So I just want to throw that in. That's something to look forward to as well, because I am in Texas, so I'm really proud about that. All right, so let's go ahead and peel over here. We're going to transition to Arkham Intelligence. We're looking at a dashboard, an entire basket of the actual approved ETF participants: Grayscale, BlackRock, 21 shares, Bitwise, Van Eck, Invesco, Franklin Templeton. These are the ones that are on the first batch, right? We're going to have some more going into the next couple of years. But when it comes to what is going on, guys, we're looking at around an hour ago. We did get a Coinbase deposit from Ethereum, an ETP that was about around $476,000. Now, when it comes to the actual Ethereum mini trust, when it comes to Grayscale, decent inflow, guys. We do have inflow. It's very, very mundane. All right, the ETH inflow is decent, but we are down, and you already know the price. You already seen the price. It is down, but I have to tell you, 24-hour inflow is decent. 1 hour inflow, decent. 1 week inflow is decent as well. So it's too early, guys. It's just way too early to just say it's a bust. We need to go a lot farther down the road. And again, like I told you, if you're looking for any type of Bitcoin return when it comes to these ETFs, you're looking in the wrong direction. It's an absurd comparison. It's just not going to perform like the Bitcoin ETFs. All right. And I think a lot of people thought that. They're very disappointed and they're moving out. And I will tell you this as we move out. Don't compare this to the Bitcoin situation. You're going to be disappointed. All right. This is going to take months and maybe even years to actually fester and ferment for us to get the actual responses and the actual inflow that we want to push this price up past 5K. All right. It's just not going to happen today. It's not going to happen next week. This is going to take some time. All right. Be mindful of that. And we'll see you on the next video.